变局这一部分，我们共同来推动。
Это как раз сейчас перемены, которые не было в течение 100 лет. Там, где вместе двигаем эти перемены. Берегите, пожалуйста, дорогой друг.
What's up, guys? Well, it seems like Xi and Putin are really hitting it off. They've been exchanging congratulatory messages on their move to dethrone the dollar. Talk about a power couple. And it's not just them. 60 nations have expressed interest in joining BRICS in some form or fashion. And it looks like they're all possibly eyeing Bitcoin as the solution to their dollar woes. Who knew a neutral, unbiased, immutable money could bring nations together like a global matchmaker? Love truly knows no bounds. We got a lot to cover. Let's get it. We'll start here. 25 countries now prepare to join BRICS alliance. We'll just do the first couple paragraphs. More on those other countries later with Robert Kiyosaki, but the BRICS alliance is going to get bigger and stronger as 24 new countries now prepare to join the bloc. The nations are looking to end reliance on the US dollar and accept the new BRICS currency for cross-border transactions. The move adds pressure on the dollar and challenges its hegemony as the world's reserve currency. Nonetheless, if BRICS expands to BRICS Plus, the dollar and other leading Western currencies like the euro and pound could decline. Therefore, Western dominance could soon come to an end, leading to a new financial order dominated by the East. Developing countries across Asia, Africa, and Latin America are coming together and pushing the de-dollarization efforts into reality. Also, the move could break the US dollar's global supremacy and destabilize the American economy.
And how many other countries have joined BRICS now?
There's over 60 countries that have applied or are in the process of applying. And, you know, when you put BRICS together with two other groups, that being the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which in and of themselves are pretty darn close to 60% of human population, and the Belt Road Initiative, over 150 countries, you're talking a mass of humanity. And if I'm going to
stop using the US dollar, that's what it means.
That's right. It's a huge deal, Robert. It is more and more and more of these pieces all coming together to show that what we are doing is going to create a massive backlash against the hegemony and the bullish.
Explain what it means when the U.S. did something SWIFT deal against a bank. What does that mean to the layperson like me?
It just simply says that if you are not in, if you want to transact dollars, you have to use the SWIFT system, which is kind of like a messaging system. It's the oxygen that allows money to go through the system. And if you're not allowed to use SWIFT, you cannot transact in US dollars, which is the settlement currency for energy for now. So it is the major, it's basically like saying to someone, if you don't do what we do, we're going to take the keys of your car and you can't drive anymore.
Massive news there. And the big one today, China throws weight behind BRICS expansion, eyes challenge to US dollar dominance as Bitcoin is gaining momentum. Some of the key objectives of the platform are to enhance economic cooperation and trade among the member countries and promote sustainable development and inclusive growth. BRICS also facilitates political cooperation and mutual understanding among member countries. One major focus of the platform has been to examine the possibility of creating a new common currency and depopularizing the US dollar. Anatoly Aksakov, chairman of the State Duma Committee on the Financial Market in Russia, believes that there is a possibility for discussions about a new currency to materialize sometime this year. The search for an alternative to the US dollar is fast gaining attention as other countries have also shown interest. Saudi Arabia and Iran have made tremendous efforts to shift their country's dependence on the dollar. In the bid to move towards de-dollarization, Bitcoin, the largest cryptocurrency by market capitalization, is becoming the most talked about alternative. The preference heightened during the recent price rally of Bitcoin. As the next BRICS summit draws close, there are talks that the agenda may include Bitcoin integration. Wild stuff, guys. China, already second or third largest hash rate in the world, as Hong Kong is seeking to become a Bitcoin hub. Nico and Opti covered this in depth recently, and it's becoming so obvious now. Not even Secretary of Treasury Janet Yellen can deny what is happening as the dollar reserve reserve currency status continues to come into question. American sanctions are pushing countries to consider alternatives to U.S. dollar. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, she says that it's reasonable to expect other countries to gradually look for alternatives to the U.S. dollar as the geopolitical world stage evolves. Speaking during the annual testimony of the Secretary of the Treasury on the state of the international financial system, Yellen says that U.S. sanctions may push other countries to diversify from the dollar, though she says it won't be easy for them. Yellen notes that countries around the world have already started diversifying the currencies they hold beyond just the dollar, but she says it's something to be expected in a growing world. Quote, there's been some increase in holdings in other reserve assets, but that's something to be expected in a growing world and economy where countries desire to diversify. We should expect over time a gradually increased share of other assets and reserve holdings of countries. It's a natural desire to diversify, but the dollar is far and away the dominant reserve asset. Not for long, Janet.
But if I may, should we be more concerned now in slapping sanctions on countries around the world and taking that into consideration and be more thoughtful as we may be creating a paranoia around the world where people are looking for other currencies to do transactions?
It is true that when we impose sanctions, countries that are afraid they can be the subject of those sanctions are motivated to look for other tools other than the dollar to engage in transactions. So
but even
that's
our
something
friends...
we have to accept. It is much more difficult to find other tools to make payments, other currencies, when we work jointly with
But we even have our
partners.
friends like France also looking for other currencies and pushing it.
You know, France and some of our allies were not happy when we pulled out of JCPOA and imposed sanctions. And but I would say there is virtually no meaningful workaround for most countries for using the dollar as a reserve currency.
Very well, and I understand earlier you made some statements about it's being the most stable option with the rule of law and liquidity and all
Yes.
that. But isn't it the fact that the use of the dollar has diminished and gone down against competing currencies over the years?
There's been some increase in holdings of other reserve assets, but that's something to be expected in a growing world economy where there is a desire to diversify, but
so we should expect less use of the dollar, is what you're saying. We should be anticipate.
We should expect over time gradually increased share of other assets in reserve holdings of countries. It's a natural desire to diversify, but the dollar is far and away the dominant reserve asset.
It's still a huge concern for us here in Congress. And just changing gears briefly.
Then we also have this article, U.S. dollar dominance is coming to an end. Time for the Chinese yuan to advance has arrived. CEO of Russia's second largest bank. The chief executive of Russia's second largest bank says the U.S. dollar is on the verge of losing its role as the world's dominant currency amid the rise of the Chinese yuan. In a new interview with Reuters, VTB Bank CEO Andrei Kostin says the move of the United States and its allies to block Russia from accessing hundreds of billions of dollars worth of gold and foreign exchange reserves is driving many nations to use currencies other than the USD to settle international trades. I have harped on this. We have the blowback of weaponizing the dollar and SWIFT will lead to a Bitcoin explosion. It didn't happen overnight, but we are on the cusp of greatness. Now let's look at this quote. Long historical era of the dominance of the American dollar is coming to an end. I think that the time has come when China will gradually remove currency restrictions. In China, individuals and institutions cannot freely move money in or out of the country unless they follow strict foreign exchange rules. Says Kostin, China understands that they will not become the world economic power #1 if they keep their yuan as a non-convertible currency. The Russian banker also says that it is dangerous for China to continue holding and accumulating U.S. debt. Yeah, get that shit off your books. Billionaire Ray Dalio said in an interview with Bloomberg that some countries are hesitant to invest in U.S. debt after seeing how the West weaponized the dollar to penalize Russia over the war in Ukraine. According to Dalio, the U.S. is now in a debt crisis as he believes the government will struggle to find buyers for newly issued bonds. Somebody cue up the hyper-Bitcoinization music. The Why More vibes are getting strong. Guys, it's clear that we're witnessing a convergence of events that could pave the way for one of the most exciting and insane Bitcoin bull cycles in history. From the recent BlackRock ETF announcement, though keep your head in a swivel, to the wild ride of the shitcoin bloodbath orchestrated by Gensler and the SEC, and now the growing interest in BRICS. The world is waking up to the tyranny of fiat currencies and seeking solutions.
You see, every country has its own currency, but every country does not use its own currency to interact with the world. So which currency do they use? Mostly the US dollar. The dollar is the currency behemoth of the world. No currency comes close to it. We're talking in terms of usage. Oil trade, goods trade, generally most of the world trade is settled using the US dollar. Most international transactions between countries and companies are conducted using the dollar. The dollar is also the world's dominant reserve currency. What does that mean? A significant chunk of wealth owned by countries around the world is held in dollars. It's their reserve currency. They save their money in dollars. Global financial systems will collapse without the US dollar. So will the world economy. So the dollar and the US have a lot on their shoulders. And that's not necessarily a good thing. As of 2020, the US had close to $2 trillion in circulation. $2 trillion. And guess what? Half of that is believed to have been in circulation outside America. What about the markets? Around 90% of forex trading involves the US dollar. Forex, of course, is foreign exchange. 90% of this is done in the US dollar. Almost 40% of the world debt is issued in dollars. So how did the dollar become so powerful? It all happened after the Second World War. Until then, all currencies were valued in relation to gold. So gold was the benchmark. Currency values were determined based on this principle. How do they compare with the value of a specified quantity of gold? After the war, the US and its allies came up with an agreement. It was called the Bretton Woods Agreement. Do you know what it did? It replaced gold with the dollar. So all national currencies were valued in relation to the US dollar. That's how the dollar became so important, which is why we now say that the rupee is trading for such and such amount against the dollar. Its value is determined in comparison to the dollar. And this became the trend after the Second World War. Then came the oil boom, and the oil boom led to a dollar boom. You see, the dollar has become the world's dominant currency. It became the dominant reserve currency by the 1970s. So it only made sense for oil trade to be settled using American dollars. Oil transactions were made using American dollars. This came to be known as the petrodollar system. And investors stick to it because the dollar gives them a sense of stability. And that's purely on a business level. On the government side, though, the thinking is changing. Many countries are realizing the pitfalls of being overly dependent on the US dollar. Take Russia, for instance. Before Russia invaded Ukraine, it held more than 600 billion US dollars in foreign reserves. 600 billion. The US weaponized its dollar supremacy. It froze Russia's holdings. And the US can do this with any country it wants to. This realization, the kind of power that America wields, is making many countries extremely uncomfortable. China, for instance, is skeptical. Russia, of course, has been burnt firsthand, which is why it is pushing BRICS to develop a common currency.
Bitcoin is emerging as the beacon of hope, offering a decentralized alternative to traditional financial systems. It's a solution that transcends borders, governments, and the whims of regulators. The world is recognizing the power of Bitcoin and the potential it holds to liberate individuals from the chains of fiat. We're on the brink of something extraordinary. With each passing day, more people are waking up and joining the ranks of those who understand the true value of a neutral, decentralized, and immutable money. The stage is set and the world is primed for a peaceful revolution. Stay informed, stay engaged, and together, let's navigate this exciting journey towards the bright orange future. Hey, thank you guys for joining us on Simply Bitcoin. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay tuned for more signal and content coming your way every single day. Keep stacking those sats and embracing the peaceful Bitcoin revolution. Until next time, Peace, you freedom-loving psychopaths. I'll catch you all tomorrow.
The Federal Reserve simply does not have authority to supervise or regulate Bitcoin in any way because there is no central issuer or network operator to regulate.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Wow.
Look, that's great.